Number one thing that is emphasized today in Christendom, it's not Holy Spirit, it's money. You go to a church, you hear about money. You turn on the television, you hear about money. Money has replaced the Holy Spirit in today's Christendom. Money has tremendous power. You know that. People with money wield great influence, whether they are businessmen, politicians, crooks, these underworld gangsters. It's with money that they blow up. Terrorists have money. They have millions and millions of rupees. And preachers also nowadays have millions and millions of rupees earned unrighteously. Earned in a way that Jesus would never have earned it. Earned in a way that Paul would never have earned it. In some other way. The power of money has replaced the power of the Holy Spirit. And it's very important that in our churches we see that clearly. Because if we don't see it clearly, we will not be able to maintain the witness that we have maintained for so many years in our churches in this area. It's not a light matter. I have been enough in Christendom today to see that particularly in Christian work, the power of money has replaced the power of the Holy Spirit. And people get the impression that God's work cannot go on because we don't have enough money. That's not the reason. God's work does not go on because we don't have enough of the power of the Holy Spirit. And instead of pleading with people to seek for the power of the Holy Spirit, they are pleading with people to give money for God's work. And usually for building some grand church building, or some pastor wants to live in grand style, it's usually some of these things which the early church were not bothered about at all. God never wanted the money of His people to be spent in grand church buildings and to make pastors live in grand lifestyles. No. Where do you see that in the Bible? But this is the slow way Christianity has drifted. And if you don't arrest that drift, if you don't have prophets to arrest that drift, it'll go completely astray. I'll tell you that. In the Bible you read about certain servants of God, and I want to show you some examples. First of all, in the Old Testament, in 1 Samuel, I want to show you the example of Samuel. Samuel was a man who came in at a time when Israel was going completely astray. If you want to know the condition of Christendom today, read the book of Judges. The main verse in the book of Judges is found in the last verse of that book. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. There was no leader, and every man did what was right in his own eyes. And that comes earlier on in the book of Judges too. That is the condition of Christendom today. Lots of Christians, I know lots of young people in our churches, who do what is right in their own eyes. They have no elder brother over them to tell them what to do. They are subject to nobody. There are elders who do what is right in their own eyes. They're subject to no one. What is the result? Your church will be exactly as described in the book of Judges. Chaos, confusion, etc. Immorality. Many things will be there. At this pathetic state, when things were going on like this for hundreds of years, Joshua had died. After that it was terrible. Great men of God have risen up in history, and when they have died, Christendom has come into the state of the book of Judges, and then God raised up a man, Samuel. He was a prophet from his childhood. And when he became an old man, remember, he started being a prophet from childhood. I don't know, maybe he was 10 years old and he started prophesying. It's one of those rare cases. But when he's an old man, he calls all of Israel together in 1 Samuel chapter 12. And he tells them, verse 3, "Look at me." Verse 2, the middle. "Look at me." I'm reading in the Message translation. "I'm old and gray. I have led you faithfully from my youth until this very day. Look at me. Do you have any complaints against me to bring before God and His anointed? Have I ever stolen an ox or a donkey from any of you? Have I ever taken advantage of any of you? Have I exploited any of you in all these years from my youth? Now I'm an old man. Have I ever taken a bribe or played fast and loose with the law? Changed the law to suit my own interests? Bring your complaint against me and I'll make it right. And the people said, oh no, never. You have never done any of that. You have never abused us. You never lined your own pocket with our money. You never lined your pocket with our money. This is the message missing in Christendom today. Servants of God who can stand before people and say, tell me, where did I take advantage of you? Whose money did I take? Did I line my pocket with your money? Did I build my house with your money? Did I buy my scooter or car with your money? Or with church money? Who can stand up and say that? Such people are missing. Samuel could. Isn't a servant of the Lord permitted to receive money from people? Wasn't Samuel permitted? He would not have been the prophet he became if he had allowed money to corrupt him. You cannot serve God and money. Not in the Old Testament, not in the New Testament. I want to give you another example in the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah was a man who built the wall of Jerusalem. A picture of a man who builds the walls that separate the church from the world. And Nehemiah was a very faithful man. Nehemiah says in Nehemiah chapter 5 and verse 15 onwards, again I'm reading in the Message translation. The governors, he was the governor of the land appointed by the king. He was a spiritual authority. Governors who had come before me had oppressed the people by taxing them 40 shekels of silver every day for food and wine. The leaders who were there before Nehemiah had said, listen, we are your leaders, you got to pay us. We serve you, we take care of you spiritually. You got to pay us for our food, and we want to have a little wine once in a while, you got to pay for that. And you got to pay your tithes. The tax was like a tithe. And the people who were the assistant leaders, they bullied all the people unmercifully to